Today's tech news moves fast, but understanding it shouldn't be hard. That's why Snarful Solutions Group brings you Connecting the Dots, where we break down what's happening in tech and why it matters to you. Now, let's dive in with your hosts.
Imagine trying to just breathe in your local neighborhood, only to discover that the thick air is coming from an unpermitted power plant right next door.
Right.
Now imagine the federal government stepping in and telling you that breathing clean air is actually a threat to national security.
It's wild.
It is. We are looking at the true physical cost of the artificial intelligence boom today. Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a daily show from Snarful Solutions Group, coming to you from Sacramento, California, where we break down the latest tech news and explain its everyday impact. I'm Alex.
And I'm Morgan.
And today is Tuesday, June 16th, 2026. So before we get to the core of what we're going to unpack today, let's take a quick look at the weather and the markets.
Sounds good.
If you're here in Sacramento with us, you are looking at beautiful sunny skies today. We're hitting a high of 93 degrees with, a pretty light breeze, somewhere between 3 to 12 miles per hour.
Perfect summer weather, really.
Exactly. Nationally, though, things are a bit more turbulent. There are currently 196 active U.S. weather alerts, with 161 of those over land, so definitely check weather.gov if you are traveling today.
Yeah, you don't want to get caught in that. And looking at the financial updates, we saw some massive trading volumes yesterday on Monday.
Yeah, heavy action.
Really heavy. The Dow Jones saw over 509 million shares traded, and the S&P 500 moved over 3.39 billion shares.
Wow. And crypto's having a pretty solid Tuesday as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Bitcoin closed at $66,055.36. That is up over $345 for the day. And actually, those heavy market volumes we saw on Monday are directly tied to the overarching theme we are tracking today.
Right, the rapid expansion of Elon Musk's tech empire.
Exactly. Specifically, the newly public integration of SpaceX and xAI.
Yeah, the consolidation happening under that umbrella is it's staggering, and it's completely reshaping how our digital infrastructure operates.
See, but I'm struggling to reconcile the brand identity with the business moves here.
How so?
Well, when you hear SpaceX, you think of Mars exploration. Right?
Yeah.
You think of rocket boosters landing on barges.
Sure.
Yet suddenly, this space company is completely dominating the news cycle regarding software coding tools and local power grids. I don't see the through line. Why is a rocket manufacturer spending billions to buy up coding software?
It seems disconnected.
It does. How do those dots actually connect for you and me?
Well, it seems like a massive pivot on the surface, but it actually makes complete sense when you look at the underlying architecture of modern tech.
Okay, lay it out for me.
SpaceX isn't just focused on physical space anymore. They're positioning themselves to own the foundational layer of how all future software is built.
Wow, okay, we will absolutely look closer at the mechanics of that strategy in just a second. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Strong Coffee, the premium instant coffee that tastes like a traditional brew but is packed with 15 grams of protein, MCTs, and adaptogens like ashwagandha. Get clean, sustained energy without the jitters. Use promo code SNARFUL for 20% off at strongcoffeecompany.com.
All right, so let's examine the financial architecture of this shift.
Let's do it.
We just got confirmation via an SEC filing, which, is the legally binding paperwork public companies have to submit to financial regulators.
Right.
So the filing shows SpaceX is officially acquiring Any. That's the parent company of the AI coding startup Cursor.
Okay.
And the price tag is it's a staggering $60 billion. The deal is slated to close in the third quarter of 2026.
Wait, I'm trying to make the math work on that valuation. $60 billion for a coding assistant.
Yeah, it's a huge number.
I mean, Microsoft already has VS Code, which has dominated the market for years. What does Cursor actually have under the hood that justifies that kind of premium?
So to understand the premium, you have to factor in what SpaceX recently became.
Yeah.
They just completed a massive IPO.
Right, their initial public offering.
Exactly, making their stock available to the public. And that could value the company as high as $1.75 trillion.
Trillion, with a T.
With a T. But leading up to that IPO, SpaceX formally absorbed xAI, which is the artificial intelligence company that developed the Grok chatbot.
Oh, okay.
Now, Cursor has arguably the best coding interface on the market, but they have hit a severe ceiling when it comes to compute power. By joining SpaceX, Cursor suddenly gets the keys to xAI's Colossus supercomputer.
Ah, and Colossus is essentially a machine with the equivalent processing power of 1 million NVIDIA H100 chips working in tandem.
Precisely.
Which Just to put that into perspective for you listening, a single H100 chip is basically the gold standard for AI processing right now. They are incredibly expensive, highly specialized pieces of hardware.
Very specialized.
Yeah, they're designed specifically to handle complex machine learning algorithms. So having a million of them linked together creates almost unfathomable computing power. It is essentially the most powerful synthetic brain on the planet.
It really is.
And Cursor gets to use it to train the world's best coding AI.
Yep. And the terms of the acquisition heavily underscore how vital that compute power is in this industry right now. There is a very unique termination clause in the contract.
What is it?
If the deal falls through for any reason, SpaceX owes Cursor a $10 billion breakup fee.
Wow.
But that penalty is broken down as $1.5 billion in cash and $8.5 billion in free computing power.
That is wild, which tells you everything you need to know about the current tech economy, honestly.
Exactly.
For an AI startup, raw computing power is a currency that is far more valuable than actual cash. But let's bring this down to the ground level, away from the billions of dollars in the massive supercomputers.
Yeah.
The sources point to a massive industry shift toward a concept called vibe coding. What does that actually mean for the everyday working professional?
Okay, so historically, software engineering required developers to manually type out thousands of lines of incredibly precise syntax.
Right. The classic hacker typing furiously at a keyboard.
Exactly. And if you missed a single bracket or, a semicolon, the whole application would crash.
Been there.
Right. But vibe coding fundamentally changes that dynamic. Instead of writing syntax, you use natural language.
Yeah.
You literally just describe the function or the vibe of the app you want to build.
But you just talk to it.
Basically, yeah. You give a plain English description, and the AI translates that into perfectly formatted code.
So it's kind of the difference between being a bricklayer and an architect.
That's a great way to put it.
Because before, you had to manually place every single brick, making sure it was perfectly aligned with the mortar. Now, with vibe coding, you just sketch the blueprint, and these large language models predict the correct sequence of code, laying millions of digital bricks for you instantly.
Instantly. And flawlessly for the most part.
Which means coding is shifting from this highly specialized niche luxury to a mandatory everyday tool. I mean, if a business can build an internal application in 2 days instead of 2 months, the cost of software development plummets.
Oh, and time.
It makes technology infinitely cheaper for families and small businesses. So going back to SpaceX, I guess it's like a car manufacturer buying the company that paves the highways.
Yes.
They aren't just building the vehicles anymore. They're trying to own the infrastructure of how all software is built.
Exactly. SpaceX recognized that shift. They are essentially acquiring the toll booth to the future of software development.
That is brilliant.
Right. If every developer in the world relies on Cursor to write their code, then SpaceX effectively has a hand in every single piece of software being created. They become the bedrock.
But SpaceX doesn't just hand over a $60 billion valuation and the keys to the world's most powerful supercomputer to just anyone.
No, they certainly do not.
The architect behind this infrastructural play is a 25-year-old CEO named Michael Truell, and the human drama behind his rise is, honestly, incredibly intense.
It's a fascinating story.
Truell is an MIT graduate, reportedly deeply introverted, but fiercely ambitious. I mean, at 15 years old, he built this coding game called Halite, where players conquer the universe.
At 15.
Right. And right out of college, he co-founded Cursor with his friends with a very specific goal: to dethrone Microsoft's VS Code, which was the undisputed heavyweight champion of code editors at the time.
And he practically did.
Yeah. But Cursor didn't build this empire independently.
No, they didn't. They had a highly interdependent, almost symbiotic relationship with Anthropic, which is another major AI giant.
Right, the makers of Claude.
Exactly. Early on, Cursor relied entirely on Anthropic's foundational AI models to provide the cognitive engine for their coding tools.
Okay, so they were the brain.
Right. And at one point, Cursor was driving roughly 40 to 50% of Anthropic's early revenue.
Wait, really? Almost half.
Yeah, it was huge. Cursor needed the AI brain, and Anthropic desperately needed the massive user base and the cash flow.
Okay, so it was a perfect partnership until the business realities set in.
Always the case. Anthropic launched its own blockbuster coding product called Claude Code. And according to the sources, Anthropic executives had privately reassured Truell that Claude Code was merely a research effort.
Ah, the classic, don't worry about this little side project.
Exactly. But the moment it went live, developers started jumping ship. Anthropic's revenue run rate shot up to $2.5 billion almost overnight, leaving Cursor incredibly vulnerable.
I mean, that is the ultimate existential threat for a tech startup.
Oh, absolutely.
If the company supplying your core technology suddenly becomes your direct competitor, your business model evaporates instantly because they have direct access to the underlying tech, and you are just a middleman.
Right. And Truel, he didn't hesitate. He called an emergency all-hands meeting in January.
Panic mode.
Yeah, he canceled all unnecessary meetings, reassigned teams immediately, and told the staff they had to build their own model to survive. They could no longer rely on Anthropic's architecture.
So what did they do?
Their solution was to build what they called composer models. But rather than starting completely from scratch, which, would have taken years and billions of dollars they didn't have, they utilized open source models from a Chinese AI lab called Moonshot.
Okay, so open source meaning the foundational code is publicly available for developers to modify.
Yes. Cursor took that base model and fine-tuned it.
Which fine-tuning is such a brilliant mechanism. It's like taking someone who already knows how to cook and sending them to a highly specialized pastry school.
I like that analogy.
Right. The Moonshot model already understood language and logic. So Cursor just fed it highly specific, specialized coding data, adjusting the model's parameters so it became a world-class expert in writing complex software.
And that pivot allowed them to release a competitive product in mere months.
Incredible.
It proved Cursor's resilience and ultimately made them an acquisition target for SpaceX, because Truel realized he needed his own massive compute power to guarantee he would never be at the mercy of a supplier again.
But achieving that level of rapid innovation required a workplace culture that is highly controversial.
Very controversial.
If you want a job at Cursor, the sources outline an incredibly grueling hiring process. Candidates are required to complete a work trial, and we are not talking about a standard interview here.
No, not at all.
We are talking about month-long, entirely unpaid trials where candidates come into the San Francisco office, sit at a desk, eat lunch with the team, and work on a frozen version of the code base for 30 days.
A whole month. Unpaid.
Yes. The standard for hiring is astronomically high. One management-level candidate, detailed in the sources, completed the entire month-long process, met everyone, delivered the work, and at the end of the 30 days, Cursor simply told them, we could probably do better, and declined to hire them.
Wow.
I have to throw a major red flag on this practice. I understand the pursuit of excellence is the defining brand of Silicon Valley, but unpaid, month-long work trials cross a severe ethical line.
It's definitely intense.
You are asking professionals to surrender a month of their lives, potentially leaving actual paying jobs for free labor on a gamble. It makes me ask you listening, does producing generational innovation really require this intense grinding culture, or is it just exploitation masquerading as dedication?
Well, the counter-argument from Cursor's leadership is that a 30-day trial is the only authentic way to measure a candidate's raw technical skill and cultural fit under sustained pressure.
Okay, I hear that.
They argue you cannot fake a month of complex engineering. But the flaw in that logic is the massive selection bias it creates. It heavily skews the hiring pool toward individuals who have the financial safety net to work for free for a month. It actively locks out brilliant talent who simply cannot afford to take that financial risk.
Exactly. It creates this insular monoculture of people who already possess significant resources. And, that intense, often unseen human cost directly mirrors the physical cost of this technology.
Oh, 100%.
We talk about vibe coding and cloud computing as if these tools exist in this invisible, frictionless realm. But powering a supercomputer with 1 million H100 chips requires a staggering amount of physical energy. You cannot run Colossus on good vibes alone.
No, you really can't. The thermodynamics of artificial intelligence are brutal.
Break that down.
Well, a central processing unit, or CPU, in your laptop handles tasks sequentially. But the H100 GPUs used for AI operate on parallel processing.
Meaning they do a bunch of things at once?
Exactly. They perform thousands of complex mathematical equations simultaneously. This pulls a massive amount of electrical voltage, which in turn generates an enormous amount of heat. You then need even more electricity to power industrial liquid cooling systems so the hardware doesn't physically melt.
It's hard to wrap your head around, but that physical reality brings us to a major lawsuit unfolding right now in South Haven, Mississippi, which is just outside of Memphis.
Right.
The NAACP is suing xAI over the Colossus 2 data center. And the lawsuit centers squarely on public health and environmental regulations. According to the filings, xAI is operating unpermitted methane gas turbines to meet the massive energy demands of this facility.
Yep.
The sources showed the number of unpermitted turbines operating at the site recently jumped from 27 to 57.
And the environmental data provided in the lawsuit highlights a severe impact from that jump. Since April, this expansion of gas turbines resulted in an 111% increase in nitrogen oxide emissions.
Wow.
An 83% increase in fine particulate matter, and an 88% increase in formaldehyde emissions.
That is incredibly concerning. And the location of this data center is a critical factor in the lawsuit. It sits adjacent to a predominantly black community in the Memphis area, a community that already suffers from heavily disproportionate pollution burdens.
Right.
In fact, Memphis ranks second in the United States for asthma-related emergency room visits. So the NAACP asserts that these unpermitted turbines are a direct physical threat to public health, actively increasing the risks of asthma attacks and heart disease for the surrounding residents.
And based on traditional environmental law, this would be a pretty straightforward regulatory dispute over the Clean Air Act.
You would think so.
But the federal government just altered the entire landscape of this case.
Wait, the federal government stepped in?
Yes. The United States Department of Justice, joined by the state of Mississippi, intervened in the lawsuit. They are formally asking the court to dismiss the NAACP's case against xAI.
The federal government stepping in to defend a private tech company's unpermitted gas turbines is unprecedented. What is their legal justification for overriding local environmental concerns?
The Department of Justice is basing its argument entirely on national security.
National security. From a coding AI.
Yes. The DOJ's memorandum states that there are only 4 artificial intelligence models in existence that support mission-critical operations across secret and top-secret classified military networks. xAI's Grok is one of those 4 models.
Okay, the court filings get incredibly specific about the military application here, actually. The chief digital and artificial intelligence officer at the Department of Defense filed a declaration stating the military relies heavily on Grok's government model for vital national security missions.
Right.
They explicitly noted that the model was actively utilized in recent military strikes during the Iran war.
So the logic the DOJ is presenting to the court is that forcing xAI to shut down those gas turbines to comply with local environmental permits doesn't just disrupt a tech company's commercial operations.
Right.
They argue it directly threatens American national, economic, and energy security by literally cutting the power supply to the Department of War's active military operation.
It is an incredibly stark collision of 2 valid, documented realities.
Here he is.
On one hand, you have the NAACP presenting clear, verifiable data on emissions and the immediate physical harm to public health in a vulnerable community.
Exactly.
On the other hand, the Department of Defense and the DOJ are asserting that shutting down those servers compromises active military capabilities. So the local community is fighting for fundamental clean air protections, and the federal government is arguing that in an era of AI warfare, keeping a private data center online supersedes local zoning laws and environmental permits. We're keeping a strictly impartial lens here, but you've got these 2 very real forces colliding.
And the outcome of this standoff will set a monumental precedent for the entire country. AI's hunger for electricity is only accelerating. The tech industry's massive energy demands will continue to collide with local power grids and community health standards.
Definitely.
The legal classification of a private data center as a vital military asset completely rewrites the rules of corporate accountability and civic engagement.
It completely strips away the illusion that AI is just a neat tool for writing better emails or, generating code. It is deeply physical, requiring land, water, and immense electricity, and it is now shielded by the Pentagon.
This whole new world.
It really is. Well, before we wrap up, a quick thanks to Old Glory, an iconic music and sports fan merch store, perfect for the techie in your life. Use promo code SNARFL for 15% off at oldglory.com.
Looking back, today's stories map out the full life cycle of this new technological era perfectly.
They really do. We started with the financial and structural layer, a $60 billion mega merger designed to control the foundational tools that developers use to write software. Then we examined the human layer, the intense, grueling culture, and the desperate technical pivots required to build that software in the shadow of massive competitors like Anthropic.
And finally, we confronted the physical layer. The theoretical race for the best coding AI directly translates into unpermitted gas turbines in a local neighborhood, turbines that the Department of Defense is now defending in federal court.
Because the $60 billion valuation is fueled by the 1 million H100 chips, the chips require the massive power of the gas turbines, and the turbines remain online because the AI they power is embedded in active military operations.
Exactly.
Which leaves us with a critical question to consider as we watch these tech empires expand. What happens when private tech infrastructure like coding tools and local server farms becomes so deeply entangled with the military-industrial complex that we can no longer distinguish between a consumer application and a weapon of national security?
There's a profound blurring of lines that will define the next decade.
We're here to help at Snarful, so reach out on our website if you have any more questions.
That's a wrap on today's top stories. Remember, tech doesn't have to be complicated, and we're here to help connect the dots. If you've got questions or want to learn more, visit us at snarful.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.